The moment you let emotions control your mind, you've already lost. Winners are not driven by how they feel. They're driven by what must be done. Control your mind, and the world will bend to your will. Lose control, and you'll serve the ones who didn't. People don't understand that every battle in their life begins before they ever throw a punch, before they ever send an email, before they ever walk into that meeting. The fight begins in their head. And that's where most people lose, before they even start. They wake up, and they've already surrendered because their mind tells them, I'm tired. It's too hard. It's not worth it. That voice inside, that weak whisper, it's the first enemy. And if you don't learn to kill it, you'll spend your whole life obeying it. I know this because I've been there. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I wasn't handed a trust fund or a perfect path. I've had days where I didn't know how I was going to pay rent, where my stomach was empty, and all I had was the decision in my mind that I refused to accept failure. I've been in situations where I was down to my last few dollars, where people told me I was wasting my time, where every logical reason said, quit now, but I didn't. Not because I felt good, not because it was easy. I didn't quit because my mind was mine, and I refused to let it be taken. See, the mind is the battlefield because everything else in life is a reflection of it. You can be in shape physically, but if your mind is weak, the first real problem will crush you. You can have money, but if your mind is weak, you'll make a stupid decision and lose it all. You can have people around you, but if your mind is weak, you'll believe the wrong ones and ruin your life. Everything you do, every choice you make comes from the state of your mind, and the people you look at and admire, the ones who seem unstoppable, they're not special. They've just learned to control the fight in their head. When I was younger, I thought success was about working hard physically, training harder, moving faster, staying up later. And yes, those things matter, but none of them mean a thing if your mind folds when life hits you. I've been in fights where my opponent was bigger, stronger, faster, but the moment I saw him break mentally, the fight was over. It didn't matter if he still had energy in his muscles. His brain had already quit. That's when I knew I'd won. Life is the exact same way. People get knocked down once and they think that's the end. They get rejected, they lose money, they fail a project, and suddenly they start questioning themselves. They start building excuses in their mind to justify why they're not where they want to be, to be. And that's where they lose. Not on the street, not in the bank account, but in their own head. The enemy isn't the market. It's not the competition. It's not even the people who hate you. The enemy is your own weak thoughts. I had moments in my life when I was broke, in a freezing apartment with bills stacked higher than my confidence. I had no safety net. Nobody was coming to save me. I could have easily told myself, it's too much. I can't do this, but I didn't allow it. I forced my brain to find solutions, not sympathy. And that's the key. If you control your mind, you force it to look for ways to win instead of reasons to quit. Most people do the opposite. They spend more energy justifying why they can't than finding out how they can, The mind is like a wild animal. If you don't train it, it will destroy you. If you wake up every day and let it wander wherever it wants, it will choose the easiest path, the safest option, the smallest life. But if you train it, if you put it under discipline every single day, it will carry you through situations that would break most people. You have to be able to tell your mind, I don't care how you feel, we're doing this. You have to command it like a soldier, not negotiate with it like a child. There were days I worked with no sleep, days I fought through injury, days I sat alone in complete silence just to make decisions without noise. That's how I learned the mind can endure far more than it tells you. Pain is temporary, but surrender becomes permanent. Once you teach your brain that quitting is an option, it will choose it over and over again. Once you teach your brain that you control it, it will obey you for life. So understand this before you win anywhere else. You must win here. You must dominate the thoughts that try to pull you back, the doubts that whisper you're not enough, the fears that keep you small. Every victory, every dollar, every ounce of respect you'll ever have starts with the decision in your head that says, no matter what happens, I will not lose here. The battle is in your mind. Win there first, and the rest of life will follow. Most people live their entire lives as prisoners to their emotions. They wake up, and the first thing they ask themselves is, how do I feel today? And if the answer is tired, sad, stressed, or lazy, they let that dictate everything. They cancel their plans, they skip their work, they procrastinate, and they justify it all by saying, I just don't feel like it. And that's why they lose. That's why they never build anything significant. Because feelings are unreliable. Feelings are soft. Feelings lie to you. You cannot live your life waiting to feel ready. You cannot let emotions decide your actions. If I only worked when I felt like it, I'd still be broke, unknown, and invisible. There were days when I had no motivation, no spark, nothing in me, but the knowledge that the work needed to be done. And I did it anyway. That's what separates the people who win from the people who live the same year on repeat. I've had moments in my life when emotions would have destroyed me if I'd listened to them. There were times when I lost big, lost money, lost opportunities, lost people I trusted. I remember sitting there, angry, frustrated, disappointed, thinking, oh, why even bother? The emotion talking. That's the part of your brain that wants to run, hide, and stay safe. But the problem is that a safe place is also where dreams go to die. When I was first starting out, I had nothing but a few hundred in my account and an insane level of pressure to make something work. Oh. My mind was full of doubt and fear. I could have listened to those feelings. I could have said, this is too risky. This is too much stress. I'll just get a normal job. But that's the trap. That's how you stay average forever. Instead, I ignored the feelings and followed the plan. The emotions screamed, but I kept moving. You have to understand that emotions are not instructions. They're just impulses. Fear is an impulse. Laziness is an impulse. Anger is an impulse. None of them are orders you have to obey. But most people live as if every emotion is a command. They get angry and they throw away relationships. They feel fear and they walk away from opportunities. They feel sad and they stop working on their goals. That's not strength. That's weakness disguised as a being real with yourself. I've been in fights where fear was crawling up my spine, telling me this guy could hurt me bad. But you know what happens when you give fear the driver's seat? You hesitate. And in that hesitation, you lose. So I learned to push fear into the background. I'd acknowledge it, but I'd still step forward, still swing, still go all in. And the same rule applies to business, to money, to relationships, to life. When you detach from weak emotions, you make decisions from logic, not impulse. And logic will take you much further than feelings ever will. Logic says, I need to do this now so that in 5 years, I'm free. Emotion says, I don't feel like doing it today. And that's the war. 5 years of freedom versus 5 minutes of comfort. I've had days where I was exhausted, where my body ached, where my brain felt fried. And still, I worked, not because I felt good, not because I wanted to, but because I wanted to, but because I had trained myself to move without waiting for the perfect mood. I knew that if I started letting emotions control my actions, I'd slip into the same mediocrity that swallows 99% of people, and I was never going to allow that. When you strip emotions from your decision-making, you become dangerous, because now you're consistent, now you're reliable. So now nothing can stop you except death. A man who can only work when he's happy will be destroyed by a man who works no matter how he feels. That's why I've beaten people more talented than me, more connected than me, more privileged than me. They had better starting positions, but they were slaves to how they felt. I had to learn that you can't trust your emotions, but you can trust discipline. Discipline doesn't care if you're tired. Discipline doesn't care if you're in the mood. Discipline doesn't care if you've had a bad day. Discipline only asks one question. Did you do what needed to be done? If the answer is no, then you failed. There's nothing wrong with having emotions. I'm saying you need to put them in the passenger seat and stop letting them grab the wheel. You acknowledge them, but you act based on what will get you where you want to go, not on what will make you feel better right now. Because comfort now is often the reason for misery later. Detach from weak emotions. Build your actions on discipline, logic, and long-term thinking. Control how you respond, and you control your life. Most people are living with a program that was installed in their heads before they were even old enough to question it. From the moment you were a kid, your parents, teachers, and society told you who you are, what you should want, and what's realistic for someone like you. They told you to be safe, be careful, get a steady job, stay in line, don't take too many risks. They told you not to aim too high because a life doesn't work like that. And because you heard it over and over again, you started to believe it. Now, without even knowing it, you're following someone else's script. When I was younger, I didn't fully realize how much my thinking had been shaped by the people around me. I thought I was making my own choices, but I wasn't. I was just reacting to the limits that had been drilled into me. I was told certain goals were unrealistic, certain lifestyles were not for people like us, and success was this slow, steady climb where you keep your head down and hope for a promotion every few years. That's not reality. That's the reality they want you to accept. Because if you never question it, you'll never break out of it. I had to reach a point where I looked at my life and asked myself, why do I think the way I think? Who told me this is how things are? And do I even believe it? If even believe it. And the truth was, most of what I believed wasn't mine. It was inherited. It was secondhand thinking passed down from people who never lived the life I wanted. How can someone who's never built wealth, never built freedom, never built power, give me the blueprint for those things? They can't. But most people still follow their advice. I've been in situations where I knew deep down what I wanted, but the programming in my head kept whispering, be careful, it might not work. You could lose everything. That's the conditioning talking. That's the voice of every person who played life safe and tried to pass their fears on to you. I remember when I made my first serious moves in business, people told me I was crazy. They said it was too risky, that I should slow down, that I should keep my stable income and not rock the boat. But here's the truth. Stability is just another word for stagnation. The problem is, most people never take the time to reprogram themselves. They go through life with this outdated operating system, wondering why they can't get the results they want. They want freedom, but they've been programmed to obey. They want wealth, but they've been programmed to trade time for money. They want power, but they've been programmed to ask for permission. If you want to win, you have to rewrite the code in your head. For me, that process was brutal. It meant cutting off voices that I'd known for years, even people I cared about because they were feeding me limits. It meant spending months alone, reading, studying, and surrounding myself only with people whose thinking was bigger than mine. It meant questioning everything, why I believed what I believed, whether my habits were really mine or just borrowed from the people around me. Reprogramming your mind is not about fake positivity or pretending everything is fine. It's about replacing weak, self-limiting beliefs with truths that actually serve you. It's about going from why can't from it's too risky to I can handle risk from that's not for me to if someone else can have it, so can I. You have to create new mental rules for yourself and you have to enforce them every day. There were nights I would literally write down the thoughts I caught myself having, the ones that came from fear, doubt, or scarcity, and I'd rewrite them on paper into something powerful. It sounds simple, but that's how you start rewiring your brain. That's how you stop living in a loop and start moving toward the life you actually want. Every single action starts with a thought. Change the thought and you change the action. Change the action. Change the action and you change your life. The world is constantly trying to program you into being predictable, obedient, and average. You have to fight against it every single day. You have to choose what goes into your mind and what doesn't. You have to be ruthless about protecting your mental inputs. Because the thoughts you allow are the seeds that grow into your future. If you let garbage in, you'll get garbage out. Reprogram your beliefs and you reprogram your destiny. Pain is the greatest teacher you'll ever have, but most people run from it like it's a curse. They spend their whole lives trying to avoid discomfort, avoiding anything that could hurt them physically, emotionally, or financially. And because of that, they never grow. You don't build strength in comfort. You build it in the fire. Every time life hits you, it's handing you a training session. But if you quit every time it gets hard, you'll never be ready for anything worth having. When I look back at the hardest times in my life, those are the moments that shaped me into who I am now. Not the easy days. Not the days when everything was going well. The nights when I was broke, staring at my bank account with more bills than money. Those nights built me. The days when I was exhausted, my body beaten down from training, but I still had to get up and keep going. Those days built me. The moments when I was betrayed by people I trusted They're the moments when I was betrayed by people I trusted. When I was alone and angry, when the world seemed stacked against me. Those moments built me. Pain is not just something you survive. It's something you use. When you're in pain, your mind wants to escape. It wants relief. But if you train yourself to lean into it instead, to push deeper when it hurts, you become unstoppable. Because the truth is, nothing great comes without pain. You want money? Pain. You want respect? Pain. You want freedom? But it's not easy. And that's exactly why it's worth it. When I first started fighting, I wasn't the best. I wasn't the most skilled. But I learned to take hits better than anyone else. I could get hurt, I could get knocked down, but I wouldn't stay down. And that broke my opponents mentally. They could hit me with their best shot and I'd still be standing. That's when they'd start losing because they realized no matter how much pain they gave me, it wasn't going to stop me. That lesson didn't just apply in the ring. It applied to life. You see, life is throwing punches at you every day. Some of them you'll see coming. Some of them will blindside you. I know. If you crumble every time you get hit, you'll spend your life starting over, never building momentum. But if you learn to take those hits, if you learn to keep moving forward while you're hurt, then nothing can stop you for long. I've had deals fall apart at the last second. I've had months of work collapse overnight because of one mistake. I've had moments where I thought I had it all figured out, and then the rug was pulled out from under me. And in those moments, I had two choices, break or get stronger. I chose to get stronger. I chose to take the lesson, adapt, and keep going. And that's the difference between people who win and people who stay stuck. The winners use the pain as fuel instead of an excuse. They tell themselves, I can't do that again. It hurt too much last time. They let fear of more pain keep them from trying again. And what they don't realize is that avoiding pain is what's keeping them trapped. You cannot get to the top without scars. Every scar you have is proof that you didn't back down. When I was building my businesses, there were weeks where I was running on barely any sleep, working insane hours, dealing with stress that would crush most people. And yeah, it hurt. It was uncomfortable. But I never saw that as a reason to stop. I saw it as proof I was on the right path. Because the path to growth will always have resistance. Just like your muscles grow by tearing and repairing, your mind grows by breaking and rebuilding. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is the resistance that shapes you. Every time you face it, you become harder to break. Every time you endure it, your threshold rises. Soon, the things that would have destroyed you in the past become nothing but warm-ups. That's when you know you're leveling up. You have to rewire the way you see pain. Stop asking, how do I make this easier? And start asking, how do I make myself stronger? Read every time you face pain and keep moving. You're forging a version of yourself that most people will never meet. And that version of you, the one who's been through hell and kept going, is the one who wins. The more pain you can conquer, the less fear you'll have in life. Focus is one of the rarest and most valuable weapons you can have in this world. Everybody talks about working hard. Everybody talks about wanting more, but very few people can actually lock in on one thing and give it everything they've got without being pulled in 100 different directions. We live in a world designed to steal your attention. Your phone, the news, social media, every little notification fighting for a piece of your brain. And most people are too weak to say no. They try to chase everything at once. And in the end, they catch nothing. When I was building my life, I had to learn this the hard way. In the beginning, I thought I could do everything. Train, run multiple side hustles, see friends every night, party on weekends, keep up with every distraction, and still expect big results. But it doesn't work like that. You can't build something extraordinary if your mind is scattered. I had to make a choice. I had to cut out 90% of the noise and lock my vision on the one thing that mattered most at the time.
I like when things started to change.
Focus is not just about working on a goal. It's about removing everything that doesn't serve that goal. It's about saying no to people, no to opportunities that aren't aligned, no to habits that drain you. And that's not easy because distractions are comfortable. They give you the illusion of progress without actually moving you forward. But real focus means making sacrifices that other people aren't willing to make. There were years where I barely went out. I missed parties, birthdays, holidays. People thought I was obsessed. And they were right. I was obsessed because when you want something badly enough, you have to treat it like it's the only thing that exists. You have to wake up thinking about it, work all day for it, and go to sleep still planning your next move. That level of focus is what separates people who dream from people who do. I've seen so many people with insane potential fail, not because they didn't work hard, but because they kept changing direction. They'd start a project, hit a challenge, and instead of pushing through, they'd jump to something new. That's what distractions do. They give you an escape when things get tough. But if you keep escaping, you'll never finish anything. Hey. The truth is, mastery comes from staying in the game long enough to see it through, even when it's boring, even when it's frustrating, even when it feels like nothing is working. When I was fighting, there were days where I didn't feel like training. My body was sore, my energy was low, but I showed up anyway. Why? Because I knew my opponent was training while I was thinking about resting. That's focus. It's not about working when it's exciting. It's about showing up when it's the last thing you want to do. The same applies to business, fitness, relationships, anything worth having. You have to stay locked in when everyone else is drifting. Focus also requires trust in yourself. You have to believe that if you put all your energy into this one thing, it will pay off. Most people can't do that because they're scared. They want to hedge their bets. Keep one foot in and one foot out just in case. But if you're halfway in, you're already halfway out. You're telling yourself it's okay to fail because you've got a backup. Winners don't think like that. Winners don't think like that. Winners burn the boats and make success the only option. I had times when I could have chased other opportunities, safer ones, easier ones, but I didn't. I stayed locked on my path, even when it looked like it wasn't working, because I knew the moment I split my focus, I'd weaken my chances. And in the end, that's what gave me the edge. I outlasted the people who couldn't commit. I kept building while they kept starting over. You have to understand, focus is not natural in today's world. It's a discipline you have to build. It means cutting off comfort. It means isolating yourself from noise. It means being willing to look obsessed while everyone else looks balanced. But here's the truth. Balance is for people who accept average. Focus is for people who demand greatness. Protect your focus like your life depends on it, because in many ways, it does. Where your attention goes, your life follows. If you scatter it, you'll live scattered. If you aim it, you'll live sharp. And if you lock it on your goal with everything you have, the world won't be able to ignore you. The voice in your head is the most powerful force in your life, and most people have no idea how much damage it's doing to them. They walk around all day telling themselves they're tired, they're unlucky, they're not ready, they're not good enough. And they don't even realize they're programming themselves to lose before they've even started. The mind listens to every word you say to yourself, and it believes you. If you keep feeding it weakness, it will produce a weak life. I had to learn this the hard way. When I was younger, there were moments I doubted myself. Times when I failed, times when I got hit so hard in life, it felt like I'd never recover. And in those moments, that voice in my head was ready to bury me. It would tell me, "You've messed up. You can't fix this. Maybe you're not built for this." If I had listened to that voice, I wouldn't be here. If I had allowed that narrative to take over, I would have quit a long time ago. Instead, I started talking to myself differently. I treated my mind like it was a soldier under my command. I started feeding it orders, not doubts. I told myself I was unbreakable, even when I felt like I was falling apart. I told myself I could handle it, even when I had no clue how I was going to make it through. And something amazing happened. The more I repeated those words, the more I started to believe them. The more I believed them, the more I acted like them. And the more I acted like them, the more they became reality. Most people let their inner voice run on autopilot. And autopilot usually leads straight to mediocrity. You have to take control of that voice. You have to decide what it says. When I was broke, I didn't walk around telling myself I was broke. I walked around telling myself I was building wealth. When I lost fights, I didn't say I was a loser. I told myself I was learning. I refused to let my mind label me with weakness. Because the labels you give yourself are the limits you'll never cross. There was a time when I had everything stacked against me. Financial pressure, physical exhaustion, betrayals from people I thought were loyal. And in that storm, I had a choice. Listen to the voice that said, "You're finished it," or replace it with, "You're just getting started." I chose the second one. And that choice didn't make the problems disappear overnight, but it gave me the mindset to fight through them until I came out on top. Your self-talk is not just words, it's strategy. It's mental programming. It's the foundation you stand on when everything else shakes. If you tell yourself you're weak, you'll act weak. You'll act weak. If you tell yourself you're unlucky, you'll see everything as proof of bad luck. But if you tell yourself you're unstoppable, you'll push through things that would crush other people. The brain is looking for confirmation all the time, and it will find whatever matches your beliefs. So, if you want to change your life, you start by changing what you feed it. When I wake up, I don't wait to see how I feel before I decide how my day will go. I decide first. I tell myself I'm ready, I'm sharp, I'm in control, I'm in control. And because I start my day with that, my actions follow. Most people start their day by scrolling their phone, comparing themselves to people online, and telling themselves they're behind. And then they wonder why they can't win. You have to understand that the world will try to control your narrative. It will try to tell you you're too small, too late, too unqualified. If you let that external noise mix with your internal voice, you're finished. That's why you have to protect your self-talk like it's a weapon. I don't let other people's opinions get into my head, because once they're in, they start to shape the way you see yourself. And the moment you see yourself through their limits, you've already accepted defeat. In the worst moments of my life, my self-talk was the only thing I had left. Yeah. When there was no money, no clear path, no guarantees, I still had that voice saying, "Keep going." When I was tired, I told myself I was strong. When I was lost, I told myself I'd find a way. And over time, that voice became my greatest advantage. Because no matter what happened on the outside, I knew I controlled the inside. Talk to yourself like you're the person you want to become, and you'll start becoming them that control the voice in your head, and you'll control the world in front of you.
Yun.